160,000 people. Just pause and think about that number for a second. That's smaller than a lot of medium-sized cities. It's literally fewer people than you'd find enrolled at some major universities. Yet, on June 14th, 2026, the tiny Caribbean nation of Curaçao walked onto a World Cup pitch. And they weren't just playing anyone. No, they were lining up against the absolute powerhouse, the four-time world champions, Germany. In this explainer, we are breaking down a match that ended in a completely brutal 7-1 scoreline. But hid inside it, one of the most remarkable, spine-tingling moments in World Cup history. Okay, let's really set the stage for this clash of absolute extremes. On one side, you have Germany. Total football royalty, right? Four-time champions who actually lifted the trophy as recently as 2014. But, and this is a huge but, they arrived at this match carrying the weight of a massive, undeniable crisis. We're talking 2 consecutive group stage exits in their last 2 World Cups. For a nation with Germany's football pedigree, that is nothing short of a 5-alarm emergency. On the flip side, you have Curaçao, the absolute dictionary definition of a David versus Goliath scenario. They're the smallest nation to ever reach and compete at a World Cup, making their very first appearance on the global stage. So going in, Germany was desperate. They needed to send a message to the world that they were back, while Curaçao, well, they were just looking for a miracle.
To really grasp the immense psychological pressure cooking on the German side, listen to what their coach said right after the match. He basically stated that this win was crucial for the country's fans and that the team desperately needed to show confidence. He pointed out that while their confidence definitely grew during the game, the foundation was already there. So, you see, this wasn't just about casually grabbing 3 points against a debuting team. Not at all. At a macro level, Germany had to prove their mentality. They literally needed a massive statement win to essentially exorcise the demons of those back-to-back group stage nightmares and, restore faith among a wildly demanding fan base. And honestly, the match started exactly the way everyone on Earth expected it to. Just 6 minutes in, Felix Nemecha opens the scoring for Germany. It was routine, it was totally predictable, it was the giant doing exactly what a giant is supposed to do. But then, fast forward to the 21st minute. The entire stadium witnessed something absolutely incredible. The smallest nation in World Cup history equalized. I mean, no way, right? For a brief, shining window of time, a tiny island of 160,000 people stood dead level with the 4-time champions of the world. Now sure, Germany wouldn't regain the lead until the 38th minute with a Nico Schlotterbeck header, but that gap in between, that was pure, unadulterated magic. Let's talk about that 21st minute, because Livano Comenencia firmly etched his name into football immortality right there. He leveled the match at 1-1 with a left-footed shot fired right through heavy traffic from the center of the box. But guys, this wasn't just a goal. It was Curaçao's first ever World Cup goal. The sheer jubilant emotion of this milestone, you really can't overstate it. In that split second, they became the smallest nation to ever score at a World Cup. It was a moment of pure, unfiltered joy, a history-making achievement that 160,000 people back home, and honestly, underdog fans all around the world, are going to remember for the rest of their lives. But, well, elite football is a remarkably unforgiving environment, and fairy tales rarely last a full 90 minutes. The harsh reality here? A massive 7-1 final scoreline. Yeah. That brief, euphoric moment where Curaçao stood toe-to-toe with Germany gave way to a relentless, incredibly clinical tactical takeover. The gap quickly widened as the German machine just shifted into high gear. It proved that while a moment of magic is beautiful, and it really is, playing 90 minutes against a fully motivated giant is just an entirely different reality. So let's break down exactly how that 7-1 route actually happened. Because Germany didn't just rely on one single superstar to bail them out. Actually, it's quite the opposite. Look at this incredible spread of contributors, from a Metros opener to Kai Havertz bagging 2 goals, all the way to Dennis Undav coming off the bench and delivering a goal and 2 assists. Think about that. In total, 8 different players were directly involved in the scoring. You even had Joshua Kimmich pulling the strings, delivering 2 key assists to just keep the pressure constantly on. Germany clearly used this match to make a definitive, undeniable statement. Their entire squad is firing on all cylinders. The really crucial point here is how Germany essentially suffocated any remaining hope Curaçao had. Havertz's stoppage time penalty made it 3-1, going right into halftime, which, is just a devastating psychological blow before the break. Then, literally just 2 minutes into the second half, Musiala strikes right-footed across the goalkeeper. 4-1. Game over. And Undav's massive impact off the bench? That just poured salt in the wound. However, and this is a really important takeaway for anyone tracking Germany's tournament hopes going forward, they still looked vulnerable defensively at times. I mean, they scored 7, sure, but they conceded 1 to a debutante team that many fully expected them to shut out completely. So the lingering question has to be, will a stronger, more experienced team expose those defensive frailties later in the tournament?
Context is everything, right? When we see a 7-1 scoreline, it instantly feels like the biggest blowout imaginable. But if we zoom out and look at the historical data, this match actually falls pretty well short of the all-time World Cup record. Believe it or not, the record margin of victory is a staggering 9 goals. And that margin has been reached 3 separate times in World Cup history. The most recent one was back in 1982, when Hungary absolutely dismantled El Salvador 10-1. So, a 6-goal margin like Germany's 7-1 win, as incredibly one-sided as it was, serves to remind us just how frequently these massive David versus Goliath mismatches have actually popped up over the decades.
So where do we go from here? Well, step 1, Germany moves on to face Ivory Coast. They've got their confidence restored and their attack is clearly clicking. But they will be desperately seeking to prove their defensive stability against a much stronger opponent, just to shake off any of those remaining doubts we talked about. Step 2, Curaçao is going to face Ecuador. And yeah, they are coming off a really heavy defeat, but they are carrying the incredible momentum and pure elation of having achieved their historic milestone. Honestly, both teams leave this match with exactly what they needed to fuel their next chapters in the group stage. And that brings us to the true legacy of this match, which really does stretch far beyond the final scoreline. Yes, Curaçao lost 7-1, but the absolute beauty of football is that the numbers on the scoreboard at the final whistle don't always dictate the emotional reality of the event. Curaçao leaves this match with a piece of history that absolutely no scoreline can ever erase. Livno Kamenencha's goal was the first ever World Cup goal scored by the smallest nation to ever compete in the entire history of the tournament. For a country of just 160,000 people, that one fleeting moment of glory is going to be celebrated for generations. It completely transcends the loss.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought. When the history books are eventually written about the 2026 World Cup, what will we truly remember about this specific match? Does a single history-making moment of sheer joy for the smallest nation on Earth matter more than the 7 goals scored by a massive footballing giant? Sometimes, the underdog's fleeting triumph echoes far louder than the victor's expected dominance. Think about that as you watch the rest of the tournament unfold.